Welcome to episode 11 of the We'll Bring the Popcorn Entertainment Podcast. I'm Brad, this is Josh, and on today's episode, we're going to be breaking down episode 9 of Masters of the Air. It's a series finale. It's all over with now, so we're going to give our thoughts on how we felt on how the series ended. We're also going to talk about episode 4 of Shogun and give our film review of Imaginary, a new horror film about imaginary friends.
That's right, and let's go ahead and jump into the news. The Oscars were just this past weekend, and it's kind of time for me to do a little bit of a victory lap. I know we gave a little bit of our predictions. I jinxed a few things apparently, but congratulations to Emma Stone for winning the Best Actress award. A lot of people thought it was going to be Lily Gladstone, myself included, but I did kind of name her as a dark horse, and she wound up winning, which was kind of surprising. But there were a lot of things that came out of the Oscars that people were talking about.
Yeah, no, with for us, Best Animated Feature went to The Boy and the Heron, which, I mean, we were all in on Spider-Verse. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was such a great feat of animation, but it went against a legend. So, I mean, it's really hard to be upset about it when, you're beat by such a legend of animation and stuff. Still think Spider-Verse should have seen something, but, I mean, yeah, you can't really complain when you lose that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're going up against Miyazaki, like you said. It's so many classic films that, he's created over the years. And this one, some mixed reviews on, but it's still, from what I've seen, a very good film as well. So congratulations to them on that. One of the big things that people were talking about coming out of it, though, was the performance of Ryan Gosling's I'm Just Ken, which was just
so good.
Absolutely crazy. It was fun. We had a lot of fun talking about that afterwards, but it was pretty cool to just see everybody involved and kind of just not take themselves so seriously for about 5 minutes, and it was a ton of fun.
You get Simu and Kingsley, who both were in the Barbie movie, showed up on stage. You had supposed to be like 65 or something dancers up there. Yeah. He went down to Greta and Margot and he's singing and dancing with them, and then he has Slash come up through the floor. Like, cool. I mean, you just have Slash doing a Barbie song. Like, there was an amazing, such fun performance. I think just relaxed everybody, and it was such a great time in the Oscars there for them to have that song be done in that way.
Yeah, sometimes they try a little too hard to be too serious, but also try to be kind of funny, but it doesn't really come across as funny. But that was just a ton of fun. If you didn't enjoy that, there's probably something wrong with you, but we don't have time to get into that. But it was a lot of fun. And then, one of the things that we were both incredibly proud of that came out of it was Godzilla Minus One won an Oscar. That is awesome. We talked about him, taking home the Japanese Oscars, which was, expected, but the one category they were nominated for, they won.
Yeah, visual effects Oscar. Incredible job by the team. Big congratulations to them. The first ever Oscar for the Godzilla series. And you have a film that was apparently done for under $15 million. That's a big special effects film.
Yeah.
Under $15 million, and they won the Oscar for it. Could this change stuff in Hollywood? Because we see $200-300 million films with rough visual effects and everything else, and that they beat out. And yeah, it's just huge congratulations. That was huge for them to win, and I was so happy to see them do that because, again, it's one of our favorite films of last year. We can't wait until it finally gets out on digital and physical release so we can watch it again. But it was huge to see, Godzilla winning an Oscar.
I remember texting you in all caps when I was like, Godzilla, let's go! We were both super excited for it. But you mentioned $200-300 million films. The film that everybody kind of expected to cleaned up big time, and that was Oppenheimer. Robert Downey Jr. winning an Oscar, Cillian Murphy winning an Oscar, Christopher Nolan winning for Best Director, it winning for Best Film, and kind of what may be, outside of the Steve Harvey incident, one of the most awkward Best Picture winner reveals with Al Pacino. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but that was super awkward. But
yeah, and they blame it on not exactly on Al, is that the people behind the Oscars decided that we're not going to say who it was. We've been talking about the films all the way up to now. We're just going to have him reveal it. So it caught him. It caught everybody. Everybody there, everybody watching was caught off guard by it. But yeah, it was a weird thing. We know we've been talking about it, but you need to read out who's winning the award. You don't just, hey, you've been watching the Oscars for 3 hours now. Who's the winner of Best Film?
Yeah. It's the biggest award of the night for a reason, right? But it was a lot of fun. We wound up watching it. It's the first time I think I've watched an entire Oscars telecast in several years. I think us doing this now kind of helped make me like sit through it and kind of endure it. And it had some, cringy moments and whatnot, but it was still like a really good Oscars ceremony, I think. But a big congratulations to everybody that won, including our favorite film of 2023, Oppenheimer, cleaning up and winning. Very well deserved. It's just an absolutely brilliant film, and all the love that it got was more than deserved. And, congratulations to everybody who won, who was nominated, everything, all their hard work, and, just kudos to them.
Absolutely. So coming out, we don't really have a release date for it yet, but we got some of the voice cast for the Among Us animated series. So if you don't know this game, it's, you load into a match where there's, depending on how you play it, killers and there's crewmates. So the crewmates are trying to figure out who the killers are, where the killers are trying to get away with everything. Mm-hmm. You can sabotage, you can do a lot of stuff. They're doing an animated series based off of this. So we've got Randall Park is playing red, Elijah Wood is green, Ashley Johnson is purple, and Yvette Nicole Brown is orange. So just out of those 4 cast members, I can see a lot of fun happening. Like, I've watched streams of people playing this. I've played it with randoms, but haven't been able to get, you need a group of 6 to 8 people to really play this game well. But I've watched big groups of streamers play it together, and they have so much fun. It could be something really hysterical and fun if they do it right, and they're starting it off pretty well with a solid cast.
Yeah, I'm a little curious to what the premise of the show is going to be, but I mean, you've got to your point some really big name, voice actors and actors that are well known playing these roles. Among Us was huge during the pandemic, especially when a majority of people were home and looking for things to do. That game really blew up in popularity. Mm-hmm. I've played it a bunch, played it with a bunch of my friends. It's a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun to pick up and play. And the fact that they're making a series out of this is pretty interesting. We'll see what the theme overall is, because I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine what they would do over several episodes for this, mm-hmm. but I'm curious to see. But they're off to the right track with the people they've put in it, for sure.
And it kind of depends on the age range you're going to. Are they going to make it for everybody, or are they going to make it more teen to adult with the humor? Because, I mean, you're talking about crewmates killing each other, and
yeah,
I mean, it's cartoony and fun in the game, but it can be played by everybody. But it really depends on where they go with the humor and the story with it, if it's going to fit in all ages, or kind of what they're going to do. Like I said, we don't really have a release date for it. It was announced, I think, in 2023, so we're working towards it. It could be out this year, but we really don't know. But I am looking forward to see how they do it, because if they can do do humor right with it, not horror, got horror on the mind today. If they do the humor right, that it could be something that's really fun and could be enjoyable by everybody.
Yeah, it'll definitely be worth checking out when it eventually comes out, for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to The Bear. So we have season 3 being filmed right now. It got a green light for season 4, and they quickly announced that, hey, we're going to film season 4 right after season 3. So season 3 and 4 are being filmed back to back. I'm really happy to see it got picked up. I wasn't expecting to see season 4 go into production that quickly. I mean, they just started in February with season 3, and they're already liking enough. I've watched the first 2 seasons. It's an incredible show. So well acted. This one is definitely for adults. It's got a lot of language into it. It deals with some heavy subject matter and stuff, but it's such a good series, and I'm excited to see that it's getting 2 more seasons.
Yeah, and that's, truth be told, I haven't watched it yet, but everything I've heard about the show is it's amazing. It's well written, like you said. Definitely subject matter that I'm interested in, like, seeing in TV shows as well. So I'm excited. That's going to be the next series that I pick up and kind of casually get caught up on before the next season comes out. But it's awesome to hear that, it's getting greenlit again, and they're filming it back to back. I know with the writer's strike and the actor's strikes that, it definitely messed with a lot of production schedules and things like that. So maybe they're kind of trying to strike while the iron's hot and get 2 seasons shot simultaneously, which is smart. Mm-hmm. It's definitely smart, especially if they're already planning to do it. Let's get them all locked in. Let's knock all these episodes out, and I'm sure season 3 will come out in the fall, if I were to guess.
We're looking at June. It's already kind of been locked into June,
so,
which like I said, they just started filming in February. And it's coming out in June, so are we going to get the other season late this year? Or are they going to kind of hold that off until next year to, keep that yearly release? It's going to be interesting to see how they do it. But, yeah, right now, The Bear season 3 is locked in to come out this summer.
No, that's exciting, and we'll keep an eye on that for sure. I'm definitely hoping I'll be caught up by the time that season comes out, so I can kind of keep up with it with you as well. But yeah, definitely looking forward to checking that one out.
Yep.
But another comic book property that's getting made into a live action film now, DC has announced that they're doing a Teen Titans movie, which is pretty exciting. I know DC's last Titans foray was the Titans series that was on HBO Max and Max, just wrapped up last year, and looking forward to seeing what they do with the Teen Titans. That's a very popular animated series that has got a very large following. Don't know if they're going to keep it kid-friendly, if they're going to make it a little more mature. I don't know what the thematic elements of it are going to be, but it's pretty exciting to get it. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so bringing the Teen Titans into live action after, we had the more adult, heavy, dark, dramatic Titans, as you mentioned, on Max. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how they do, especially when, anything now that's being announced by DC, especially in live action and animated, is going to be a part of the brand new big DC universe that they're building. So I'm curious, outside of, the Teen Titans now, how are they going to work? Are they going to be worked into other properties from DC? Are we going to see them show up in other areas and where we see them grow and change throughout? Because it's interesting to see where they're starting with Superman and everything else, that now they're bringing in the Teen Titans. It could be really fun and something for, all ages, that we would assume to be all ages, because it was kind of probably young 9, 10 plus, I would say, with the Teen Titans animated series, but they could pretty much be done by anybody. So if they continue that with the live action version, they could have a pretty good hit that can be enjoyed by everyone.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. So we'll keep tabs on that as they start announcing castings and when the film is going to start shooting, when it's going to start coming out, and have all that. But definitely looking forward to that from DC as well. But switching from DC to Marvel, Nicolas Cage this week has confirmed that he's going to be in talks to star in the live-action Spider-Man Noir series, which is awesome. So Nicolas Cage did do the voice of Spider-Man Noir in the Across the Spider-Verse films, the animated films. And so that's pretty exciting that he's in talks to do the live-action series as well. I know we both kind of enjoyed his take on that character, and just to kind of see what they do with it.
I mean, Nicolas Cage is in everything. It can be good, it can be bad, but he was really fun to hear Spider-Man Noir and Into the Spider-Verse. He did a fantastic job with it. It's so fun to hear his voice behind that character. And so it'll be fun if he does end up doing that in live action and tying all that together, that he continues this character. And
I kind of want it to be kind of a meta, take on the character too, because keep that theme from his demeanor and everything from the animated Spider-Man films into the live action, where it's just dramatic cuts, emo sounds, and things like that. Just giving that same kind of thing that really only Nicolas Cage can do well, and just kind of build on that, and that would be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, I think if he ends up doing it, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how he approaches, because he does have his approach. So if he's already played the character once, I assume he's going to push to be able to give the same performance and same everything that he did to the animated version. So I'm looking forward to that, to see when that finally comes out. I don't think we have a release window for that yet. They're still planning it, still casting. So we're looking probably a couple years away before we see that. But one that we will probably never see, he also gave an update that National Treasure 3 is more than likely not going to ever happen with Disney. They did do a show which didn't include him. It had a couple cameos from the movies, but I honestly didn't end up finishing that series. I got through 3 or 4, but it didn't really grab me. It wasn't bad. It just didn't grab me like the movies did. The movies were fun, over the top, quirky, gave you a little history, little not history, had fun with it all. But I really enjoyed the first 2 National Treasure movies, so it's kind of disappointing that we're not going to see a third.
Yeah, we're never going to find out what happened on page 47, are we?
No.
It's never going to happen. And that sucks. But the fact that I'd rather them not make it than try to make something out of that, what I mean? Take something to make it bad. To your point, I did watch the entire National Treasure series on Disney. It was just okay. It wasn't anything game breaking. It was fun. It had some fun callbacks to the show, to the movies a little bit in the show, and had a couple big name actors in it as well. But definitely not worth exploring beyond one season of it, really. And the fact that they're not gonna do another film, that does kind of suck. But like I said, I'd rather them not do it than to like kind of begrudgingly do it and kind of not put a ton of effort into it anyway and just get a bad film out of it. Because to your point, like we both enjoy the first two films anyway, so having leaving it at that, I guess, is fine. But I don't know. That's the completionist in me wants to know what happened on page 47 for sure.
Yeah, I would like to see it kind of if it was. We don't know if it would have been the last one or not, but to wrap it up as a trilogy would have been a lot of fun. Any, like you said with page 47, other stuff, any threads they left open to close them and kind of give a resolution to the characters and send them off if you're going to end. But, they could possibly, in the future, they could change their mind. But right now, he's looking like, nope, not going to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it does change, that's cool. But, leaving it where it is, I'm fine with that too. So a film we talked about recently was the Crow remake starring Bill Skarsgård. It dropped its trailer this week, finally. So outside of the images that we've seen, we do have finally some film footage, a little bit of insight into what the film's actually going to look like. Having seen it, I feel a little bit better about the film compared to how I felt just by looking at the photos. But jury's still out. Obviously, I'm going to go see it, but we got a little bit of a better picture of what the film's actually going to look like and be about. And I don't know, Brad, what did you feel after finally seeing it?
I'm still a little mixed on it. It did make me feel a little bit better. Looks like Bill's acting is really good. He's been great in a lot of things, and it's going to be dark. It's going to be violent. We're telling the story pretty well, but the Crow and Eric. There's a very I don't want to say historical, but just there's a look to him through all the different ways the Crow's been done with comic books and the films and everything else. Like there's an iconic look behind this, and we've got that shaved mullet and the tattoo. I'm still kind of torn. I get that they're probably trying to do something else, but it's hard to look past that. You were expecting the iconic look, and you got something vastly different. I'm definitely going to check it out and everything, but I'm still not fully sold on his look. Maybe things will change, and Bill's performance might put it all behind and stuff too. But I also have a hard time that when I first loaded up the trailer, there was a very top comment that I saw when I loaded the trailer was that, why does he look like Machine Gun Kelly and Florida Joker combined? And I just can't get that on my mind because unfortunately it is a very accurate description. Mix in a little Jared Leto Joker in there, and you've kind of got this mashup between those three.
Yeah, and it's what the internet's a crazy place anyway, but like, people are going to have their comments and their opinions on this and that and all that. And that's fine. And it can be funny too. But at the same time, like, I love the first Crow so much. Like, the sequel's not so much. But the first Crow movie, at least, with Brandon Lee is, in my opinion, a beautifully shot film, beautiful told story. They're kind of taking it and putting a modern spin on it, I guess, doing their own take with it. And like, I'm a little on the fence with it, but to your point, I'll always give it a chance anyway and watch it. But the film, the trailer for it made me feel a little bit better about going to see it. Like, I'll probably be more excited the closer we get to the film to watch it, but I don't know. It's still a little bit of a mixed bag, but that's just kind of my honest opinion on it. But we'll definitely look forward to checking that out and reviewing it 100% here. So
and then from our look too, it feels like most people's are kind of right along with us that it helped from the initial images, but we're still a little mixed and not sure because again, like this is a cult classic. We know everything that happened with Brandon Lee with the filming of the movie. There seems to be some curse that has been just hanging around this franchise, and they've tried so many different times and talked about, I think we mentioned that Jason Momoa was once attached to be playing Eric and being the lead of the Crow, but it's like we finally have it. It probably for many people is not going to live up to the original just because it has that concrete cult legacy behind it. But I would definitely give it a chance and watch it and see how it ends up turning out. Yeah,
and we'll continue to keep tabs on that as more information comes out as we get a little closer to the film. So we got about 3 months now before the film does come out in theaters. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah, another film that we're kind of mixed about because it's being fast-tracked, and we've talked about it a lot, that a new Jurassic World movie is happening. We got Gareth Edwards is going to take on the direction. Now we potentially have Scarlett Johansson coming on as the female lead, which I absolutely love her, and her being in another big action series, because, if the way they're fast-tracking this and the way the movies have gone in the past, this isn't going to be a one-and-done deal for her. She's signing on for a new franchise. Probably another trilogy if I had to guess, at least. But it's interesting to see that she's going to be now taking on dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because you hear a lot of these guys, once they leave that Marvel realm and like their contracts run out on it, it usually splits the road in two different directions. There's the people that, hey, anytime you need me, I'm there. Of course, the check probably doesn't hurt. But you also have the other people that are like, once I'm done, I'm out, I'm gone. Like, write me off. You'll never see me in one of these types of things again, at least in like a Marvel sense. They might do other things, and it seems kind of like Scarlett Johansson was okay leaving the Black Widow character behind and maybe doing some other films and some things that, aren't the big budget blockbuster type films. So it seems like she's kind of splitting the road a little bit too. Like, I'm not anti big budget films, but I'm maybe not going back to Marvel, but I might transition to Jurassic Park, which is a little different. Like, those movies are always going to do big box office numbers and do well. And you could cast Scarlett Johansson in anything and I'll watch it for, a litany of reasons, but she's a tremendous actress as well. And, excited to see what, her take on whatever role they give her for this film will be. And if she winds up being the lead in it moving forward, that's great news for her. But like you said, there's been so much talk about this film just being shot and out like very quickly that you kind of hope for her sake that it's a quality film that she can really sink her teeth into and move forward with, but the jury's still out.
Yes, we really know nothing about what they're trying to do here. Like, how long after the Jurassic World trilogy is this going to take place? Is it, months after? Is it years after? We really don't know where this is going to fall in the timeline. Could they jump back and do something in between Jurassic World and Jurassic Park? We really don't know anything about the story-wise to really know what to expect here, but I mean, having Scarlett Johansson jump on would be pretty big for them. But as you said, like a lot of times when actors, especially around this age and stuff, like, she's not old, we're not old or anything, but they're looking to want to do smaller independent films, or they want to do, things that have a little bit more meat to them than normally these big action films have when it comes to drama and story and everything else. So it's interesting to see her jumping back into something that is a big action blockbuster.
Yeah, I'm sure, she has her reasons, obviously, but I mean, we still don't know. It's not confirmed or anything, but it's one of those that, like, if it's gaining this kind of traction now, it's probably likely going to happen. So, we'll look forward to it and see what they do with it. But, the jury's still out.
Yep.
For sure. One project that does look to be back on, which I'm kind of excited for, is the Star Wars Rogue Squadron film, which initially got some conversation behind it, I want to say a year or two ago, maybe at this point. But it's being helmed by Patty Jenkins, who directed the Wonder Woman films and is trying to move into the Star Wars realm, which is fantastic. I think it's a good place for her. This film got a lot of buzz when it was announced that it was in talks to happen. And then for whatever reason, Disney decided to shelve that project. But now it looks to be back on, though. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, because, I mean, this was first announced back, I think, after Wonder Woman 1 was done, when she was really becoming popular and stuff, so it's been quite a few years. Yeah. Lucasfilm and Star Wars ended up dropping just basically every movie that they had in the works, and now we've got the, Rey continuation, we've got some more, I think, there's a couple that we're still not sure of if they're going to happen or not, but they kind of dumped it all. So it's interesting to see that they're going back to Rogue Squadron. I had a lot of interest in it before to see what she could do with it. It could be fun if they went more the route of like Rogue One, did a little more serious, got a lot of great action flying shots. Sure. Basically, I would picture it and would hope it be something along with like a Star Wars Top Gun.
That'd be great.
That would be a great way to kind of do that, and it would be a lot of fun. So it's just interesting to see that she's back and that it's moving forward, and I hope she's able to turn out something really great.
Yeah, that's very exciting, and it sounds like it's back on again. No casting news to announce for that yet, not even a release date. I don't even think they're probably working on a script at this point, or have one written, or have an idea of what kind of story they want to tell and where this is going to take place and things like that already outlined. But details on that are scarce because it just broke that they're picking this back up. So where they stop versus where they're picking up, we don't know yet, but we'll definitely keep an eye on that and continue to bring news on that as it develops as well.
Yep. Another franchise that's coming out, not exactly franchise. There's been one movie so far from Ready Player One. So Steven Spielberg announced that Ready Player Two is in the works. And of course, there was a second novel release. I read the first novel. I have the second one. I haven't broken open the book yet. I need to read it. He's going to produce this time, won't be directing, but it's going to be interesting to see where they go with Ready Player Two. I really do not know the story of the second book to see where this could be going, but I really enjoyed the Ready Player One book. And of course, they made quite a lot of changes for the movie, but I think they did the best it could because that's a book that was just full of references to every movie out there and a lot of licensing issues for doing something live. I'm sure the second one's probably going to be a licensing palooza as well, that they have to get a lot of stuff in there, but I'm looking forward to see where the story continues.
Yeah, and the book was incredibly popular, to your point as well. I've read the first book too. The second book I've not even glanced at myself either. So, like I said, I can't speak to the story that they tell in that, but the fact that it's getting a sequel, they're turning it into a film, that's great news. To your point, yeah, the licensing thing is going to be a very fun conversation to have. And I think now with the world of virtual reality becoming a lot more, like, they're doing a lot more now with virtual reality than they were even when the first film came out. So the possibilities for this second film, you could dive a lot more into that now that we have a lot more, technological capacity and other types of stories that we could tell with that technology that we probably couldn't back then. Mm-hmm. So there are some exciting things that they could do with it. I'm very much looking forward to, reading the book and having that to kind of base what I think may happen in the film. But to your point, they did change so much because of the licensing problems. But I think if they could kind of take the elements from that story still and apply it to the film, that it could be a recipe for success, because the books are wildly popular. Like they're a very popular book series. So it's exciting that they're adapting the second book into a film as well. But yeah, I'm curious to see where they pick up with that one left off, because I kind of remember, like, from the first film, like, it was a good, like, one-off, like, story that you could tell, and it kind of had, I want to say, a fairly definitive ending. So where they're picking up and moving forward with that, I'm not entirely sure at this point.
Yeah, and we had announced, which we talked about in a previous episode, that they're building a VR world for it, the Oasis in a real actual game you can play. So is there going to be any connection between that? Are they going to be planning to have that game ready for the release of this film? Is there going to be any mention of it? Are they going to style it around the same style and look? Because, the special effects in the movie weren't bad. They were definitely stylized to try to make it look like it's a virtual reality video game. Mm-hmm. Of course, we could see updated graphics make it look a little bit better, but it's interesting to see if they will be doing a tie-in with the game, the VR game that they're making at the same time, because I have a feeling it has to be, working one-on-one, whether the movie is dictating what they do in the game, or maybe they're so far along in the game that they're giving ideas to the filmmakers of maybe stuff they can include. So it's interesting to see how this is evolving from, the first book to now having the second book and, second movie made, and having that VR experience that'll be coming out as well.
Yeah, that's exciting to keep tabs on for sure. Another film that we're keeping tabs on is Batman Part 2, which is the second Robert Pattinson Batman film. It's been announced this week that the movie has been delayed by a year. It's now slated to come out on October 2nd, 2026 instead of 2025. Reason being behind that is they're not necessarily done with the script. The writers' strike delayed a lot of that being finished. So it kind of pushes back the beginning of production and lining up everybody's, availability in their schedule. So it does look like, unfortunately, it's going to be 2 more years before we see the continuation of that, which is kind of a bummer. But, if it all works out, I'm more than fine waiting a little bit of extra time to get a good second take on that film that you and I both found that we liked surprisingly more than we originally thought.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It kept that dark. Robert Pattinson did a whole lot better because people still had that notion of him from Twilight and everything else of how he's going to be, but he's been great in Christopher Nolan movies. He's been great in the Batman. So I was really looking forward to seeing it next year. So having it delayed a year is a bummer, but we do have the Penguin series that's coming out. Sure. So we do have some of it that'll hit this year. We do have a continuation of that world happening. Don't know if Robert is going to show up in a cameo at all in the Penguin series or not, but we do have a little bit of that world to hold us over. But like you said, it's 2 years away now. That's going to make it 4 or 5 years from the first film.
Yep.
So quite a bit of a delay in between the films there. And you're going to have several things established in the new DC universe, which we know this is existing outside of it, but how is that going to affect people's view on this second movie when it's, going to happen a few films or a few projects in the new DCU?
It's fun how all these things are going to tie together, like a branding for something like that can either positively or negatively impact what could potentially be a really good film. And, if DC drops the ball again, which we hope they don't, but if they do again, does that kind of stay in interest in it? I kind of feel like, though, Batman is one of those characters that's a little bit impervious to that because Batman is so popular. Spoiler, Batman's my favorite comic book character of all time. And it does feel like it's a little bit bulletproof when it comes to stuff like that. Even the Ben Affleck Batman that everybody kind of like scoffed at when it got announced, like still did really well, like when he was in these films. So
and there was a big positive reaction to him being Batman, even though at first, like, Ben Affleck is Batman, like you looked at it like, hey, he actually did a really good job, even though same with Henry Cavill Superman, we didn't really get enough of either of them in the roles, but they both did well with the roles. And it's not like we haven't had bad Batman films either. And Batman and Robin kind of stuff wasn't the greatest. It's still fun to go back and watch if I turn my brain off and not really care where everything is going with it. But it wasn't the best, but we've had some great, we've had some rough. Yeah, I think Batman is going to be able to withstand just about anything.
It's really remarkable, though, how much it can, you know what I mean? There's been so many different takes on it over the years, and they all seem to be pretty successful in their own right, which just speaks to the value of how popular that character is and, just the love that people have for that. And they're just always willing to turn out and kind of, give it their time and money. And so it really speaks to the power of that character holds over people.
I think we're on our 7th live action Batman when you go back to Adam West, through Keaton's, through Kilmer and Clooney and Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson and Ben Affleck. Like, you've had a lot of actors taking on this role, but yet the respect for the character that people have of, I want to go see that, is still, I think, as high as ever.
Yeah. So that's Batman Part 2 delayed until 2026. So as always, we'll continue to keep people updated as we see news, information, things of that nature that come out for that as well.
Yeah. And we did get an announcement that Neve Campbell is going to be returning for Scream 7. So there's been a lot of controversy around the Scream series for a little bit here. So, Scream 6, she was asked to be back, but negotiations and stuff went really bad there. So a lot of social media back and forth with that. And then before, we really had a lot of talk about Scream 7 here. We had a few actors from Scream 6 who got dropped for stuff that they said on social media. So again, another big uproar over that. And now they finally announced that Neve is coming back. But we'll see with the Scream series here if people are still willing to give it a chance with Neve Campbell coming back, because it's been a little rocky with I think the last film was decently solid in the series, but it's more of what's happening outside of the film that's causing a lot of controversy.
Yeah, and it's difficult because, Scream 6 commercially did very well. Like it was one of, if not the highest grossing film of the series, if I'm not mistaken. I might have my box office numbers, mixed up a little bit, but it was very successful. Obviously Jenna Ortega is extremely popular right now, especially with, the Wednesday series and her attachment to that. And the fact that she dropped from Scream 7 at this point in kind of a little bit of solidarity with the, I'm not going to remember her name, the actress that was kind of the other star of the films.
Because I'm great with names.
Yeah, you're terrible at names, but this is like, you're rubbing off on me now, and stop it. And yeah, like it's weird how this, because it sounded like we were going to go from 6 right into 7 right away, because we got a quick turnaround from 5 to 6 as well. Like that was a very quick turnaround too, and it sounded like we were getting ready to do that again with 7, and now it's just kind of restarting from scratch. Do they feel like they're doing a little bit of damage control now by having Neve Campbell return? And it's like Neve Campbell's like, all right, you want to keep this going, back up the Brinks truck and give me the money that I want.
That is what it kind of feels like. They're doing some damage control because of all the controversy with those two actresses, one being removed, the other dropping out with Jenna Ortega, that This does seem like them trying to right the ship by like, all right, Neve, sorry, here's a bunch of money. Please come back and help us save Scream 7.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it ends up turning out good and if people still go to it because she's returned. But it does feel like, I mean, we're 7 films into the Scream series. Never really saw it ever going that long. It's turning into like Jason and Michael Myers and everything else.
Really
it's
is.
having that
Saw.
just super long, like, Saw. Like, this is the final. No, this is the final one.
It's really wild when these film franchises get into like 7, 8, 9, 10 films, like where it goes, because it almost seems like they peak, then they kind of dip a little bit creatively, and then they peak again. And it's really fun to like kind of see the ebb and flow of the storytelling in that. What's Scream 7 going to look like? I don't know, but you're putting Sidney Prescott back in. Sidney is the the ultimate Scream character at this point. So is this, hey, we'll give you a lot of money. Are we going to kill you off at this point finally because she's escaped death so many times? I hope not, but, you never know. Like, is it one of those, like, all right, we're going to do this as one last hurrah because they've killed so many people off in this film already over the past, 6 films that can they come back to Sydney again, and what kind of story can they tell at this point? But, the fact that she's coming back and doing it, I'm excited for it. We'll definitely go see it, obviously, when it comes out, but Neve Campbell returning is a big deal. It's a big W for that franchise and fans of it for sure.
Yeah, but like you said, like what really do they have left to tell of her character? Like all the stuff she's been through multiple films now, like what is left to really tell? Because she was the main character. We've had Courtney Cox and others who returned and stuff. They were more of the side characters that helped, and you could just kind of piece them along as side characters. But this was, the main character that kicked everything off. What do they have left to tell of her story? It could be something where they bring her back and kill her off and, hype up that drama and everything else with it. But I've always had that kind of rough spot when they bring a character back that's been part of it for so long and just axe them off and be done.
Let me throw a wild conspiracy theory out there for it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it anyway, even if you don't want it. Do they do like a Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween situation?
Potentially.
Do they Drew Barrymore her? Like everybody's like, oh, Drew Barrymore's in Scream, and then she was in like the first 5 minutes of the film. Spoiler if you haven't seen Scream, but do they do that with Neve Campbell in this? Like, Neve Campbell, here's your bag.
That is kind of where my mind goes to. Like, either she's going to be killed off very quickly and early, and the rest of the film is trying to figure out who finally got her and all that, or does it turn out to be that she is now ghost-faced?
Oh, man.
That she's the killer, and it turns out that she's been through so much that she's now turned to the darkness, and she is going. Both ways feel wrong.
They really do. There's no. I would much rather they go the Jamie Lee Curtis and Halloween Drew Barrymore route and just wipe her out early than have her turn around. I'm not gonna lie. I'll definitively say it this: if she winds up being the next Ghostface, I'm done with Scream. I'm not going back at that point. Like I can kind of say I'm definitively done at that point. But kudos to her for working it out and them getting it all back on the same page, and we'll see what kind of story they tell. But that would be fun to speculate. Now that we know that she's back in the fold, but yeah, if she's Ghostface, I'm done. Yep. That's the end of Scream for me at that point. But we'll leave the jury out on that one. Yep. But another film that got announced now is Arnold Schwarzenegger is starring as Santa Claus. We're getting an Arnold Schwarzenegger as Santa Claus in a film called The Man with the Bag. So this is going to be a film that stars Arnold as Santa, who his magic bag gets stolen, and he has to kind of turn to his naughty list, really, to find a thief to help him get it back. And the thief is supposedly going to be played by Alan Ritchson, who is awesome. He's probably going to be, like, if he's not already, the next big action film, TV star. Like, he's amazing in Reacher. I love that show so much. And he's been in a bunch of other things, but it's going to be fun. We get Arnold as Santa. How full circle of this is it for Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in the Santa Claus phase of his career?
I'm trying so hard not to do a bad Arnold impersonation. Like it's always there, and I want to do it. But this could be fun. Like it's kind of weird where Santa has been in the last several years, because we've got a lot of adult-centered Santa stuff. We've got the Bad Santa films. We have the Mel Gibson Santa film. We've had
Violent
Nights with it. Like, we've had a lot of adult-centered Santa stuff, and now we're getting another one. If they do it right, it could be a lot of fun. Keep it tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it's not Jingle All the Way, but it'll have to... if they don't have a Turbo Man joke in there somewhere, there's got to be a Turbo Man on a shelf or being brought in or sticking out of the bag. They've got to do a little reference to Jingle All the Way and have Turbo Man in there. But this could be a lot of fun. Like you said, having Alan in there, he is literally the big action star. That guy is massive, and it could be another little passing of the torch type of thing that Arnold's done a couple times now to him. But those two could play off each other really well, and I'm interested to see how this film will work.
Yeah, like I said, I love Alan Ritchson. A lot of his recent projects have been a lot of fun. He was kind of tying it all together. He was in the Titans show as Hawkman, and it's going to be fun. Like, it's another holiday film. Do you imagine that it'll take Die Hard's place as your favorite Christmas film, or like, what are you expecting from it? Never?
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. We almost were synced on that. Almost.
Just about.
Almost. But yeah, it's not Christmas until Hans falls off. Like, that's Christmas.
Leave a comment how you feel about that. Engagement. But no, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that film. It sounds like a fun premise. So Alan Ritchson is a thief helping Arnold Schwarzenegger Santa get his magic bag back. It's got the potential to be absurd and fun, and I'm personally here for it.
I'm already picturing so many one-liners by Arnold, and just it's going to be, hopefully it's going to be fun, even if it's just absurd fun because we're laughing at how ridiculous it is. I have a feeling we're going to have fun with that one.
Yeah, I don't think that has a release date or anything, and I definitely don't think they've even started shooting the film, but the fact that that's announced and on the docket, it's a lot of fun, and we'll definitely keep tabs on that for sure as well.
So to kind of wrap up our news here, we've got some interesting stuff when it comes to DreamWorks. So the first part is with Kung Fu Panda 4. It's now being reported that originally Kung Fu Panda 4 was going to be a hybrid film that was going to be animation with live action footage of humans and stuff, and it would just sound so weird. Like, we've had these 3 films, to all of a sudden the 4th one jump. Like, how, maybe it's a connection through the spirit realm or something, but that just seemed really odd to jump in to bringing live humans into an animated feature like that.
I'm not gonna lie, I when I read that, I didn't know how to feel about it, because like I love the animated films, and go back in our archives and check out how we felt about Kung Fu Panda 4. But it's so weird to think that was even like who thought that would be a good idea? Really? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying not to get like too hot takey with it, but like, it just sounds like a bad idea. Like, mixing, it's hard to do live action and animation mixed already. You take an already successful like franchise like that and just, could you imagine the hard pivot from 3 straight animated films to like a hybrid animated live action film that's the same story, like a continuation? Like, what would that even look like?
It feels really odd and weird, because even on top of that, it's come out as well that the studio basically had no plans to have, and slight spoiler with the film, if you haven't seen it by now, it's still doing really well, go check it out, but a little bit of a spoiler with the film is that, the Furious 5 originally were not planned to be in this movie. The studio didn't want them in there. The animators themselves pushed hard to try to get the Furious 5 back in there, but ended up being, in the end, the marketing team told the studio, we need to have them in there somehow. So they have a brief little cameo in the film, but it's kind of odd that the animation team pushed for it, but it took a marketing team to get the studio to change and at least throw them in there for that brief cameo.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd pivot from DreamWorks too. Like, DreamWorks has been, for lack of a better term, knocking a lot of these films out of the park when they come out, and they do a lot of good business. It's just like, I don't know who was involved in making these types of decisions, but it almost seems like they met in the middle a little bit, because another spoiler, like, when they do appear, there's none of the voice actors in it because they have no speaking lines. So it's kind of like a brief one-off cameo, like a little training session and whatnot, but like, what was going on there? I mean, we don't never know. We could speculate here for hours on end as like what we think could have happened, but it's just such a weird decision that got made here for this film that I don't really care for it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and it just adds to that did they really not know what they really wanted to do with this film? Because if you go back and look at a review, I was a little more mixed on it. It felt like it lost some of its charm, and now that we hear more of this behind the scenes about the animators fighting for the Furious 5, about them wanting to do hybrid, it definitely feel like they didn't have a solid grasp or grip on really what they wanted to do with Kung Fu Panda.
Right, and it kind of sounds like they're going through a little bit of a staffing restructuring there, and that could have something to do with it. Like, what did you think?
That's
about
a really unfortunate thing that we're hearing, is that apparently DreamWorks is going to be laying off up to 50% of each of their animation departments. So that's a pretty large cut, major changes. We really don't know what the reasons why. I think DreamWorks said something along the lines that it's not layoffs, but it's contracts not being renewed, but people don't have their jobs. You're losing 50% of your departments. These are layoffs. This is a major changes. Could AI be playing a part of that? Could they be looking at to try to utilize AI to do some films? Which honestly, right now, if there was an animated film that I learned was done in AI or live action film done with AI, I may not go and see it just because of standing on principle that it should be a tool used by the companies, but it shouldn't be replacing animators. It shouldn't be replacing voice actors. It shouldn't be replacing things. It should be assisting and helping, not overtaking.
Agreed.
And I hope that's not the case.
Yep, that's not either. And, our hearts go out to all these people who are, essentially out of a job at this point, because you can call it, not renewing contracts. It's a very corporate way of saying we're laying a bunch of people off because we're just not rehiring them or renewing people's contracts at that point. And they're choosing to operate at 50% less efficiency for these things, which kind of does lead to that speculation. Like, okay, we fought so hard in this writer's strike to not have AI, take everybody's jobs, but you're conveniently at this point now not renewing deals, which is a very, very poor, in my opinion, just my own opinion, legal way of getting around laying people off. Yep. You know what I mean? We'll honor our contracts, but at that point, we'll keep the people here that are still under contract, but not, just kind of work on our workforce reduction. It sucks because you're dealing with a lot of people, 50%, I don't know if people really underestimate how big these animation departments really are and how big a teams go into making these, films and these projects. It's not an insignificant number of people out of work. And hopefully, these people, land on their feet and get, well-paying gigs in other areas and other things like that. And, well, not in other areas, other studios, other companies, they get additional work in their field, making good money and, supporting their families, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. But it sucks to hear that, just it goes to that deeper conversation. Like we've talked about ad nauseum at this point here about, AI taking people's jobs and what it's looking like for the future of the entertainment industry. And it sounds like DreamWorks may be the first one to kind of dive into it. And I'm kind of in agreement with you. Like if we find out that, hey, this is a, fully made AI film, it may not get my business out of principle too. And I would hope that more people would, stand on those principles and kind of stand in solidarity with that and just kind of let them know, hey, just because this tool is what you can use doesn't mean you can completely remove the human element from it. Because to your point, it should be more of a guide tool and not a overall telling your story. Even if you want to have it help with a drafting or something, you know what I mean? And then you can add human elements, because that's one thing AI doesn't do, right? It doesn't add the human elements to these things.
You're going to have a bunch of soulless projects because AI is just not going to be able to write or do the drama, the heart, the feeling, the complex emotions of a human being. And if they can, well, again, we have Skynet.
And we don't want Skynet.
But there's also a little bit of chatter that it looks like the Animation Guild's contract is up this summer. So could there be a little bit of DreamWorks trying to get out ahead of a potential another strike, and instead of hiring back some guild members, that they get animators and workers outside of the guild to try to do projects? Which again, if it is true or part of that, that's very kind of dirty. They should have learned a lesson, if, like I said, it is from the writer's strike and the actor's strike, that you can't do that. Don't be doing the shifty way to try to save some money.
Sure. And hopefully, we don't know how it's all going to play out, obviously. So, if we wind up being wrong about this, obviously we'll, correct ourselves at that point. But it does sound like it's a very shady, underhanded kind of thing going on, and it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on for sure. And like I said, our thoughts go out to everybody affected by that, people that are going to lose their contracts and eventually be out of work and have to start looking for other opportunities. That sucks, and we'll always sympathize with that for sure.
Yep.
But moving on now, we are moving into our review. We have finally the final episode of Apple TV's Masters of the Air. It's been 9 episodes now. We finally get what's more or less the resolution for these characters. It's a bit of a little longer episode for this one compared to the other ones, which thankfully, because it's kind of what we were hoping for, to get some kind of end. Does it get to the end of the war? Where does it last? Where does it wind up? And we finally get the answers to most of the burning questions that we had for these characters by the end of this episode. And I personally felt like it was a satisfactory ending to the story. You find out who makes it, who doesn't make it, and eventually what winds up happening to these people.
Yeah, I think it did a solid job of wrapping up. As we said, a few episodes, it felt more set up. It doesn't mean we didn't like the episodes and that it wasn't good. It just, we felt like there was quite a bit of setup to come into this finale, and I think we did get a very satisfying ending. I think the pacing was really well with this little bit longer episode to go through everything with these characters to get our full resolution to a lot of these stories. We did end up getting to the end of the war, the spoiler. It's going to be hard with a series finale to not really have spoilers because we're going to be talking about the whole episode.
Sure.
But, we do kind of start off, it was beginning of May in 1945. So we're getting, we were right in the heart of where everything is starting to end and wrap up. And we get to see Rosie getting shot down and going behind enemy lines and seeing what happens with him, which, fortunately for him, he didn't end up in a POW camp like other. It looked very rough for him, but thankfully for him, he was able to be found by allies, and we got to follow his conclusion of the story. And then, basically the rest of it was following our POWs.
Yep.
And I thought all of them got really solid resolution. Most of these are based on real people, so we're getting to see how they really ended up.
Yeah, and to your point, like all of the main characters in this show are real people who were in the war. So this is a telling of the stories of what happened to them. Yeah. Like Rosie, who, is the most well-known character out of all of these historically. You find out what happens to him. To your point, he lands on the right side. There's a really powerful scene with him where he's in the motorcade going to catch his plane to get back, where he winds up at one of the POW sites, and he gets the perspective of people who were there.
Or one of the concentration camps.
That's what it was, the concentration camps, not the POW camps, sorry. So one of the concentration camps where, the Jewish people were held, and he has a really moving conversation with a man, kind of speaks to him in Yiddish a little bit, and you get that interaction and him just feeling the weight of, the consequences of war at this point, and it's a very, very powerful scene, very well done. It's one of my favorite single scenes in the entire series because of, the heaviness of the subject matter and, him kind of taking the time and taking it all in before kind of getting pulled back to hey, we're ready to continue. We need you to jump in and go. We need to go get you where we need to get you. And it's such a well-told story for him. And to your point, we transition to the POWs from that point, and we get the resolution of them and them marching through Germany to different sites, and eventually, a couple guys make a break for it. One of the people unfortunately don't make it back to the camp, but we do, for the most part, get happy endings and conclusions for everybody here. All but maybe one of those characters makes it to the end of the war, and we get that. I know you and I had talked about it in our last episode, hoping to get some kind of updates post the war of what happened to these guys and what their lives turned into, and we get that. So it kind of ends with a montage of, each of these characters, what their accolades were, what happened to them after the war. Obviously with it being so far, what was surprising for me is a lot of them passed fairly recently.
Yeah, there were some that are still
long lives.
alive into the 2000s here. I'm one the Tuskegee Airmen passed away at 100 years old.
Yeah,
and
it's incredible.
But to go back just a little bit back to the concentration camp scene, is I'm also really glad they put in it, because they did kind of skim over D-Day a little bit, because we know about it, we've seen it be done in films a lot, but I'm glad they included, because really past that we had the train car showing people being taken to it, but we hadn't really seen anything much on the concentration camps, and to have that emotional impact of him walking through and seeing the bodies and seeing just the death and the carnage and getting that information that they've passed tons of these huge ones. It really had a gut punch in that impact, even though, we know about it, but to see the character see it and to go through that again and see that, like, it was such a powerful scene that I'm so glad that they included. And so the continue on with the POWs, we got a little bit more story, but it was mostly about the march, about the hardships of how far they were being marched and moved, and the guys just not knowing, are we being marched to our death, or are we being marched to another camp? They end up in what turns out to be the final POW camp that they were going to end in, because the Allies have finally made it to them. There you get that big scene of their rescue, but before that we get to see just how heartless the Nazis were, of where they turned their guns from the Allies onto the prisoners to try to kill as many of them as they possibly can before they're eliminated. Like, just that was another powerful scene to me, just because you're seeing them shoot at planes, shooting at the tanks, shooting at what's coming in, and just that snap decision of turning the gun down into the camp, and just that was another just gut-wrenching scene of watching, just like, oh, that hit hard too.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really well done conclusion to this series, and I'm glad that we watched it as it dropped in its totality. I'd love to eventually go back and just take a day and just watch the entire thing all the way through, to kind of get the linear story, to have another perspective, knowing, like, okay, what they tell and what the conclusion of the stories are, and just kind of binge watch it on like a rainy day or something, where I'm not going out and doing anything, but to kind of go back and see it in its totality in one shot. But it was really well done. I'm really glad that they ended it the way they did, and we got to the end of the war. We got to see the resolutions for these characters and what happened to them. A lot of them went on to leave absolutely incredible lives after the war.
A lot of them went into teaching too.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
A ton of them went into teaching, but
like, just more public service, and it just speaks to the bravery of these people, and we can't thank them enough for, obviously, the service to the country and the sacrifices they had to make during the war. And we've been so fortunate. I don't want to get political on here ever, but we've been so fortunate that it hasn't been like any major world wars since this, at least now. And it's still such a powerful story that they're telling, and it's a constant reminder of, like, just a reminder of how awful war is, and just the like, nobody really wins. Like, there's obviously people that win wars, if you want to call it that, but like, it's such a moving story that they did, and they really ended it on a real high note for me. I was really happy.
Yeah, with that ending, like, that was another part I want to touch on, just because of the heartwarming aspect of it, because it kind of went a little softer, and we got the guys doing some runs of dropping off food and supplies to people. But this isn't to Americans. This is to the people whose homes and countries were ravaged and wrecked and destroyed. So you're getting to see, like, hey, the war is over. So what is the first thing that the Allies and the American stuff do? They load up all those planes for more missions, but this time to drop the food. And you're getting to see how, the people in Poland and all around of where they were really wrecked, reacting. And I love that touch of it, just because you're seeing, like, it wasn't only our soldiers and stuff that we followed through all of this. We're getting to see that more human element of those who were just innocent bystanders in their own countries who the war just ravaged through. We got to see them a little bit. We got a little bit of a highlight of them, of, not only thinking, but just like, we need these supplies, we need these, thank you for helping us survive this horrible thing. You see a guy riding a bike down the street and then see crash plane wreckage in their fields. And you get that nice last little touch of just showing that how many people outside of the Allies, outside of the soldiers, were affected by this incredibly horrible war.
Yeah, it was a nice touch at the end. And I don't mean to laugh when I say it, but there's just a little bit of a, like, they go on that first run when they get back to do these humanitarian drops, and they're still in war mode a little bit. Like, it's understood that we won, but, like, you're running into, like, you're doing this humanitarian drop, and you have to pass through, like, German areas, and they're like, they've agreed to not, like, it's a truce, like, they've agreed to not do it. But it's like, there's a little bit of that, well, are they going to, a little bit of an extra drama element added, a little bit, to where it's like, are they going to keep their word here? Because they don't know. Like, they're just coming in. Like, it's just, it also a little subtle nod of how hard it is to turn that off once it's over. You know what I mean? How you're still affected by that. Because it was even like, all right, like, we're passing these guns. Are they going to actually let us through? Or are they going to shoot at us? Like, what's going to happen? And obviously it all worked out okay. But it was an interesting little twist at the end, too, to add the just one little section of, like, do you think they're going to do that here? But like, just a little bit of drama, maybe sensationalized for TV, but, like, still, like, I still think it was told a pretty good story there.
Overall, Masters of the Air was a brilliant series. It did such a good job of giving us a different side of the war, looking with our airmen, our bombers, giving us behind enemy lines of in the air, seeing all different aspects. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a great series that they did such an incredible job telling the story. I couldn't recommend it enough. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And as kind of as we saw when the series ended, they have a companion documentary series. So it's called The Bloody 100th. It's narrated by Tom Hanks, who executive produced the series. We haven't seen it yet, but I absolutely plan on checking it out. So this is telling, the real stories of everything that got them to do Masters of Air. This is everything that inspired them to do the series, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that documentary.
Yeah, same. So that was Masters of the Air. You can see all 9 episodes on Apple TV Plus. Highly recommended. Can't recommend it enough. And thank you for kind of going on that journey with us as we've watched it episode by episode here on the podcast. And it's definitely one that we can't recommend enough checking out.
Yeah, another one that we can't recommend enough is Shogun on FX and Hulu. Like, moving into our talk about episode 4, this series continues just to be so incredibly good. Like, everyone just acting. I can't say good enough things about the show. Like, it's done so well. So, little bit of spoilers if you haven't seen the first 3 episodes. We've kind of got where Lord Toranaga has left Osaka. He snuck his way out. They've made it to a fishing village that is of Yabu's. I think nephew, yes. I think, is running that. So, but we've still kind of got that double agent in Yabu. He's playing both sides with Ishido, with Toranaga, and we get a little more depth in that. But we kind of get Toranaga makes his pitch and everything to the soldiers there, but then he disappears, and the rest of episode is about John Blackthorne, and he's supposed to be training, but we're still finding out with him that he's still kind of a prisoner. He's been offered this title and this position with Lord Toranaga, but he's being kept. He's not allowed access to his guys. He can't go to his ship. He's really being kept. He's an open prisoner, basically, of this, and kind of being used by all sides still.
Yeah, so you get a lot of him, he reaches the agreement with Lord Toranaga that he's going to help train his men in unconventional, to them at least, battle strategies and guns and things of that nature. And you get a very funny scene where he's trying to explain a battle, and he does it in a way that's so funny because he explains a battle that he did not take part in. And, Lady Mariko, who's his translator, is kind of calling him on his BS at this point. So you're talking about a battle that you didn't partake in.
You weren't even born for that battle, right?
Right, and it happened before he was even alive, and it's only a discussion that they can have because nobody else understands what John Blackthorne is saying, because there is that language barrier, right? And they're like, hey, what's he talking about? And they're kind of having their discussion, and then she kind of she kind of gets him to pivot to talk about stuff he actually has experience with, which leads to, a cool training session where they essentially take the cannons from his ship and he teaches them how to use them. And there's the fun dynamic of, our cannons aren't that accurate. And he's like, well, mine are. And, there's some pretty cool training scenes that happen, and you get a little more continuation with that. But I cannot stress enough how much I love this show at this point. Like, I am completely hook, line, and sinker. I love Masters of the Air. Don't get me wrong. But this show is so good. It's so well written. It's shot beautifully. It's a well-told story. John Blackthorne is very fastly creeping up my list of favorite TV characters. Like, he's an upper echelon TV character for me now. The guy that plays him is so brilliant in this role, and just a ton of fun. And his reluctance to, help, but he's kind of begrudgingly doing it because he feels like he's going to get rewarded for helping get back to his crew. And there's a lot of fun things at play here, but it's also very dark and very serious and very, it touches on a lot of elements that I like in my storytelling, because it's got humor, it's got action, it's got, some more adult things, it's violent, it's, there's language, but there's a charm to all of it too.
Yeah, I'm still surprised at the amount of humor in it. Like, I wasn't expecting there to be a lot of jokes or things that you would see humorous in this very kind of dark, serious story, but it works so well to kind of lighten that mood for a minute. And it just, the jokes and the humor in it has been so that there isn't one aspect of this show that I could say is done badly.
No.
Like, everything is done so well, and story wise, the pacing has been really so good. Like I said, even though this was a little bit of a slower episode, we got a lot of development with Lady Mariko and John Blackthorne and Yabu and kind of those around the village, and kind of seeing that double play as well. And we see Lord Ishido's soldiers show up, and Yabu is given an ultimatum that you either come back and atone for your crimes and admit that you're basically helping Toranaga and you're not helping Ishido, because he's been playing both sides.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they're basically saying, well, you come back and die, or you can die right here. So he's basically stuck in the decision of, do I die here or do I die somewhere else? But kind of the decision was taken out of his hands at the end, and we see in episode 5 and moving on, we're heading into war.
Yeah, what a twist, man. You kind of set the stage for some of it, but even the way that it concludes in this episode was jarring, because it's violent. It gets violent really quick, and we're like, even at the end, it was like, well, this is war. Like, it's like we're jumping into it, and we're getting ready to jump full on into it, because once word reaches back to what's happened there, like it's on at this point. Like, they're not messing around. So it's going to get real fun real quick.
And even when word gets back to Lord Toranaga, because as we mentioned, he kind of disappears for this episode. He like I mentioned, he's a master chess player, so he has all these moves. So Yabu and the rest of them are expecting, when they get this fishing village, they're all setting up and they're going to camp out here for a while. And he's like, oh, I got to go.
Yeah, that's part of the humor, though. That's part of the fun part of it. He's just like, because he gives this moving speech and they're all like, yeah, we're with you. And he's like, all right, see you later. And he's gone. And you're like, what the heck, man? Where are you going? Like, what other affairs do you have to attend to? But it's really fun. I'm having so much fun watching this show. It's an early contender for my favorite show of the year already.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the top shows of the year. It has to stay up there. I don't know what could knock this show off. We've started the year off with Master of the Air and Shogun, two brilliant shows in their own respective way. We have a real war movie, and then we have this 1600s, Japanese war series that it's really good. It's just, both of them are so good. Shogun, we cannot speak highly enough about. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's well worth your time. But again, and I feel like I still need to mention it, there's 2 different versions to watch. So if you want the dubbed version, so you're hearing English language when the Japanese actors are talking, you want to watch that on the FX version, video on demand. If you want the fully subbed, getting all the Japanese characters in their original language and acting, which I feel, for my enjoyment, has been the right way to go, because they give brilliant performances, and it's well worth seeing their performances. Absolutely. You can check that out on Hulu, but all 4 episodes are out now. Every Tuesday is when you're getting, so on Tuesday here, we're going to get episode 5, and we cannot recommend the series enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to move on into our film review of the week, and that is the new horror film Imaginary. Now, this film, don't look at me like that. You're creeping me out like this movie did.
If you've seen the movie, you'll get that reference.
You'll get the reference. But it's a film about, a girl who takes an interest in a new imaginary friend when she discovers this teddy bear in the basement. And this teddy bear is supposedly possessed by a spirit who tries to get her to do things to bring her to like his spirit realm. And I'm doing a very poor job of explaining the plot of the film, but that's kind of the gist of it. And it's a family that moves into this house, and there's some ties back to the stepmom who grew up in the house and her connection with the bear as well. There's a lot of things at play here. How did you feel about the film when you watched it?
Overall, I don't think it was a bad film. I just don't think it did a whole lot to kind of separate itself. Like it sticks to kind of the basic horror tropes with things. A lot of jump scares. It has creepiness to it. I didn't find a whole lot of it frightening or scary or anything like that. It had its creepy moments. The acting was well. The story overall was pretty decent, but again, it was very predictable, and it went very by the numbers of this type of film. Like there was nothing that really made it stand out from other horror films like this. I
don't disagree with that, because I feel like it's very... So the production companies that put this film together are Lionsgate and Blumhouse. Now, if you've seen Blumhouse films, it's very formulaic of a Blumhouse type film. It follows a lot of, to your point, similar tropes, it's not groundbreaking, in my opinion, any type of storytelling or, thematic devices that they use. It's not the most creative, like, if you're into, like, those types of, like, possession type films about like a possessed stuffed animal or toy or something like that, you'd probably like films like Annabelle better than you would this. It's like Annabelle light, if I were to say it. Like, if I were to give an honest opinion of it, like I said, there's only a couple small jump scares in the film. So if you're like a jump scare person, there are a couple, but they're just kind of meh. Like, it's more, to your point, it's more creepy than it is like scary. It's got a lot of creepy elements to it, which is fine. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's kind of just a middle of the road horror film. It's not the worst horror film I've ever seen.
That's the problem with it. To me, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't, it didn't bring anything new.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't one of those, wow, that's a really neat way of telling this story. I didn't get that from this film. Yeah. And it's not to say, like, it's got, Thomas Paine, who plays Jesus in The Walking Dead. He's in it very briefly, and I say very briefly, tongue in cheek, and he's laughing as I'm saying this, because there's a situation in the film where somebody shows up, and it's a traumatic experience for his daughters, and he turns around the next day and he's like, "All right, I'm out to go do a music gig. I gotta go work this music gig." So he's a musician, but he leaves his family after kind of a traumatic incident that happens at their house very early in the film. And we're like, so you're just like, your daughters are traumatized by this. You're about to just peace out and go do some music gigs. Like, what the heck, dude? Like, Father of the Year, you're not going to win.
And that's a prime example of what we said with this movie, is that it sticks to the standard tropes of everything. It does everything kind of by the book that you'd expected. There's no real surprises. There's no, it just does everything standard by the book of filmmaking and horror filmmaking. It's just it didn't need to rejuvenate anything, but it just really didn't bring anything new to the table. Like, again, I hate to talk about it that way, because it wasn't a bad film in any way. It was just such middle movie. Like, it did what it did well, but it just did standard stuff.
Yeah, and we're not necessarily selling the movie very well, but it's one of those, like, if you're into that genre and into those types of films, absolutely watch it once, form your own opinion on it, and feel, if you feel differently about this film than we do, please let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we'll gladly have that conversation, but it's just one of those, like you said, it's very formulaic, by the books, book by the numbers. Like, if you're into horror and you see, like, similar films like this, it's probably middle of the pack as far as, like, the execution of the film. It's fine. Like you said, and that's kind of the best way to describe it. It's fine. Like, it's not terrible. It's not an awful film, but it's not a great horror film either. Like, it's not one of those, like, every once in a while you'll get one of those, like, genre-breaking films that, like, either introduces something that's never been done before or tells a story in a way that's never been done before to kind of, like, have everybody like, oh, man, you have to, like, this is one of those you have to go see. We'll still advocate the people, if you want to see it, go see it. I don't imagine it's going to have a long shelf life in the theaters at this point, but definitely, at least if you don't go see it in the theaters and it comes on demand on a streaming platform, check it out. It's definitely worth a watch, and you might get some enjoyment out of it. Like I said, we didn't dislike the film, but we weren't like blown away by it either.
Yeah, I think it's worth at least one watch. Yeah. But past that, I don't know if I would ever go back and revisit it. Just, again, it wasn't a bad movie. It just didn't do anything that made me... It wasn't memorable. It wasn't anything that I would, I need to go back and watch this again. It did what it did well. The acting was solid overall for a horror film, and, it looked good. The film was shot well. The special effects was decent for the creatures. You kind of got a mix of kind of puppeteering, costume stuff with a little bit of CG ish. It did it all right, but I said there just wasn't anything overly scary. Not too much horror, and like I said, I think its biggest fault in the end is it just went by the numbers of standard horror filmmaking was its biggest flaw. Yeah,
which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a great thing. It's not one of those like, wow, I can't wait to tell all my friends I saw this movie film. At least that's how I felt coming out of it. It wasn't like, because even the next day, after we had seen it, I had told some friends that I was going to see it, and they were like, well, how was it? Because people will ask, what'd you think of it, especially knowing that we do this now. Mm-hmm. And I gave them an opinion, and they're like, oh, so I got the impression that they weren't in a super big rush to see it after I said it, but I'm like we always say, go see these films, support these films, and form your own opinions on it. We're just giving you ours, but I just felt like it was fine. And that's just the best way to sum it up.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it, it was an okay movie. Yeah.
And Imaginary is in theaters now. If you'd like to go check it out while it's still there. And it should be coming on demand and all digital platforms soon.
Yep. Now, we wanted to give a little bit of a nod to another channel here. So they do horror. Currently, they're doing a reaction series to The Walking Dead. They're currently in season 4, so you're getting to the Look at the Flowers episodes. And some still, at that point was still core, real great Walking Dead. So they're doing a reaction series. They're called We Love Horror. You can find them on YouTube. We'll have links to their social media and their channel in the description of these episodes. We'll also post it out on our social media. So if you want to give them a like, see what they have and their takes on horror. They might also be checking out Imaginary well. You can see what their thoughts on it. But if you want to take a moment, we're going to play a little video here from them. And afterwards, give them a check, give them a like, check out their videos and see what you think.
Hey there, TV and movie buffs. Are you tired of watching your favorite TV shows and movies alone?
Do you find yourself laughing, crying, or even screaming at the screen, wishing you had someone to share those moments with?
Well, look no further, because we got you covered.
Welcome to We Love Horror, your ultimate destination for horror movies and TV show reactions.
Currently, we're binge watching The Walking Dead, but we're going to be doing other movies and TV shows, like the upcoming movie Imaginary.
But what makes our channel unique is we don't just watch, we react, we discuss, and most importantly, we connect with you, our amazing audience.
So if you're ready to watch Brooke laugh, cry, and experience a roller coaster of emotions,
then hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join Brad and I on an incredible journey through the horror universe.
Just watch.
React with us on We Love Horror.
So yeah, that's We Love Horror. You can find their channel on YouTube. We hope you check them out, show them some love, let them know that we sent you over to them. And we hope you get some enjoyment. If you're a horror fan, they're definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, they are friends of ours, so give them a chance, give them a check it out, especially if you are horror fans like we are. They put on a great show over there as well, and we can't recommend them enough. Yeah. So what do we got coming up in theaters this week? Coming up in theaters, we finally have made it to a film that you and I have both been looking forward to for a very long time. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire drops in theaters this week. We cannot be more excited about that. Spoiler alert, we're reviewing that next week, so we will be going to see it as well. Very excited about that. That is coming out in theaters So much to look forward to in that one. It's a continuation of the previous Ghostbuster film, starring Paul Rudd and, with appearances by the previous Ghostbusters film stars of the 80s. So
And we loved Afterlife.
yeah, absolutely. Afterlife was fantastic, and this is the next film in that series. And there's also a film called Sleeping Dogs. It is a Russell Crowe action thriller film that is also coming out this week. It's another one to look forward to. We like Russell Crowe, so looking forward to checking that out too.
If you're a video game fan, that has nothing to do with the game of the same name.
Absolutely.
So
It's definitely not a
an
video game.
action, crime, thriller type of film. Like, I had to search out the trailer to
Right.
watch it because I've seen it nowhere.
Yeah, so it doesn't bode well for the film necessarily, but it's one we wanted to highlight as well coming out because Russell Crowe is still, a very popular actor, but it's kind of surprising that there's not a lot of info about the film out, really. It's kind of say what you want about the marketing for the film, but the fact that he's in one and it's not super hyped up, still one worth checking out for sure. We wanted to highlight that. But also coming out on streaming platforms this week is Roadhouse, the remake of Roadhouse. Absolutely, you have to say it like that, Roadhouse. But it's a new take on the film, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor, UFC star Conor McGregor making his major acting debut as well. That's dropping on Amazon Prime Video.
I'm
on
still
March
so
21st.
torn on that.
Right, me too. Like, the Patrick Swayze film is iconic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of his biggest films of all time. It's got such a massive cult following for that film. It's gonna feel more of like a fight style film than the type of film the Roadhouse really was at its core, which is still like, fight scenes and all that stuff because it takes place in a bar. But like, it's finally coming out. I'm anxious to check it out, though. I want to see it. It's either, in my opinion, it's either gonna be really good or an absolute train wreck. You could probably, judging by the way I'm describing the film, think how I think it's going to go. But,
Yeah.
definitely one worth checking out that we've been looking forward to as well. There's also a film called Shirley that is dropping on March 22nd. It is about the first African-American congresswoman in the U.S. It's going to be starring Regina King. And very much looking forward to checking that one out as well. It looks really well done. The trailers for it look really good. That is dropping on March 22nd on Netflix.
And Regina King's really been killing a lot of movies
has,
lately.
yeah.
She's been doing so well, so that one should be solid.
Fantastic actress, I agree.
For digital releases, we actually had a surprise drop last week on March 15th at Madam Web. Like, we know what's been said, what we've said, what everyone said about Madam Web, and they just kind of very quietly like, hey, let's put it out for on-demand purchase on a Friday without any news or anything else. Like, hey, we're just going to put it out.
Yeah.
But on demand to purchase this week is Bob Marley's One Love. You can check out our previous episodes to find where we reviewed that. We enjoyed it. And that's going to be a good one to check out on March 19th. And Anatomy of a Fall will be out on March 22nd. That's one I haven't been able to see yet, but I've heard such great things about it.
Same.
It was nominated for some Oscars as well. So that is another big film to check out on demand this week. TV-wise, what's made us feel like little kids again? X-Men 97 hits Disney Plus on March 20th. We're getting 2 episodes dropped on the 20th. We can't wait to check it out, bringing us right back to our childhood. That's just going to be so much fun to watch and see and just feel like young again.
I'm so excited for that. I've been waiting for this for so long, and the fact that they finally, like, we'd mentioned it before, like it was one of those that we thought was coming significantly later than it is, and it's here. Like, it's here now. It's coming this week. So please, cannot recommend enough checking that out. We're very excited. Another little spoiler, we're going to be talking about it next week. So we're going to check those episodes out and talk about it, but can't recommend that enough, especially if you grew up loving the 90s X-Men animated series as much as we did. Brad, I know you're kind of going through a little bit of a rewatch on your own with it, and it's to your point. You said it's still, I don't want to speak for you, but it says that, it still holds up. Like, it's still hitting all the same notes it hit for you when you were a kid.
It just feels weird because as a kid, those series of X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman and everything, they felt like they had like 20,000 episodes that you were watching them every Saturday morning or, afternoon after school when they aired, that each season took 8 months to air. And then like I go back and watch like, wait, I'm already at Apocalypse. I'm already at Days of Future Past in season 1. I'm already hitting these major tentpoles, which I felt like I saw 300 episodes before we got there. They felt so much longer than they actually were. But it's been really fun to go back and do a rewatch of that and see, because, you know, it is a 90s series, so you get some of the dialogue and the look of it and everything, but it's still so much fun to go back and watch it, and I can't wait to see what they've done with the new series. They already have season 2 written. They've already talked about a season 3, so it looks like we may surpass the original series with how many seasons, because I think that only went for 3 seasons, and they're already talking about 3 seasons for this, so it might be matching or surpassing the original series.
I love it.
Also coming out this week for TV, kind of bigger premieres, Palm Royale on Apple TV. So this is kind of more of a quirky period drama that it looks really interesting. Not sure exactly what to feel about it, because there hasn't been a whole lot of marketing. There hasn't been a lot said about it, but Apple TV Plus has been really nailing shows lately. So that one is instantly, just being on Apple TV Plus right now, is on my radar to check out at some point, just because they've been doing such a great job with all their series.
Yeah, they're churning out a lot of high quality content, and they're still one of the more affordable, if not the most affordable, streaming service, like, at this point. And the fact that you're getting all this high quality content from them, like, it's just a testament to how well they're telling their stories, and, you know, the stuff that they're putting out is just continues to get rave reviews, and, you know, good on them for, you know, giving you your best bang for your buck, in my opinion.
Yep.
So that'll do it for this week's episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. Join us next week, as we'll be talking about Shogun Episode 5, as well as our thoughts on the first 2 episodes of X-Men 97. Can't wait to dive into that, as well as our review of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, another film that we're just so excited to talk about. I'm looking forward to all of the wonderful things that we're going to talk about next week. It feels like we're going to relive our childhood again next week.
Young us are going to be so excited about X-Men, the animated series, and Ghostbusters. Like, it's going to be just feel like a little boy for a week.
It's so good. Looking forward to that as well. As always, you can find us on YouTube at We'll Bring the Popcorn. You can check out all our social media info at willbringthepopcorn.com. Don't forget to also go check out our friends at We Love Horror on YouTube. Once again, the link will be in the description of this video. We can't thank you enough for all of your love and support, and we'll see you again next week.